All right, we got it fired up. Dan Campbell. We got him a little spicy. You know, we haven't heard from our man in charge, the head man, Dan Campbell, since the owners' meetings. Like, it's been a long time since we've heard from Dan Campbell. It was good to hear from him again today, and he addressed some things straight on. We talked about it in a video. It had to be in the last week, about how the Detroit Lions, I think, are starting to get some disrespect around the league. We're seeing a lot of things where people are keeping them out of the playoffs. I don't know if they're thinking it's the schedule. I don't know if they're thinking like, hey, too good to be true. Maybe it's the change of both coordinators. Whatever it is, they're not getting this love that they were getting going into last year by a lot of people nationally. They're still getting love by some, but not like others. The Lions aren't anybody's darling this year, where they're just like, oh, this team's going to be great. So let me ask you this to start the video off. Do you think the Lions deserve more hype going into the year? Right? Do you think they deserve to have more confidence put in them? And where's your confidence level? What do you think this team's going to be? Maybe they're not getting the hype because of what I'm saying. I think they're a 12-5 team this year, right? I've gone anywhere from 11-6 to 13-4. That's what I think their record's going to be, which is a playoff team. Anywhere from 11-6 to 13-4. It's a playoff team that is a darn good team that you don't want to see in the playoffs. You don't want to see them. Maybe they have home field. Maybe they win the division. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But they're going to be in the playoffs. And so I don't know what that kind of looks like, what people are seeing. But Dan Campbell's been hearing it. And he went and he talked about it, and I want you to be able to hear exactly what he said. So I'm going to play it right here about everyone who's doubting the Lions this season. It's about 45 seconds long. Here you go.
We're not going to give us any nugget you need to. All right, it's all good. We'll take all of that.
Yep.
So give us every excuse, and we will use that, especially when the time is right. But I'm not worried about that we don't have pass rush. I'm not worried about that we lost 2 coordinators. I'm not worried about the injuries. I'm not worried about the Hall of Fame game. I'm not worried about the schedule. I think it's perfect. I think it lines up perfect. I think it's going to be what's best for us with where we're at going into 2025, my 5th year here, the core of this team's 5th year. And I really think it's exactly what we're going to need. The timing is perfect.
This is exactly what we're going to need. The timing is perfect. Give us any nugget you need to. We'll take all of that. Love this. Give us any excuse. We'll use it. Dan Campbell is ready. He is frustrated, and you can tell that he's a little bit frustrated. And quite frankly, that's okay. Like that, quite frankly, that is okay because he realizes this same thing. Sorry, there goes another volume. All right, but there's 2 more things that he said because some of you are wondering other questions. Great. We just got every excuse we needed to come out even harder. This is what great teams do. They use things for motivation, or they just, quite frankly, stay motivated. And that's exactly what this Detroit Lions team is going to do. But there's a lot of people talking about entitlement and complacency. Like, what is that about? Dan Campbell talked about that one as well. Here you go. Let's let you have a listen.
Oh, everybody's locked in, and we're excited. The message is the same as it's always been, man. There's no room for complacency. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to deal with entitlement and complacency. Our team's not, and, I love the schedule we have this year because this is the type of schedule that builds you for the postseason. Like, man, you better be on it, and we're going to get tested early and often and all year long, and it's freaking awesome. It's really how you want it. So we'll be ready to go when the time's right.
Yeah, we'll be ready to go when the time's right, and I trust him. And I know some of you are talking about, speaking of ready to go, there's a couple people that have been holding out of OTAs. Now, again, I want you to remember a couple things here. The Detroit Lions removed their mandatory minicamp this summer. They removed it, and they removed a week of OTAs. So while most teams are doing 3 weeks of OTAs and a week of mandatory minicamp, the Lions are just doing 2 weeks of OTAs. Why? Why? Because we have the Hall of Fame game. So we get to start a whole week earlier, so we're going to make that up in the back end, and Dan Campbell wants to give his players the rest and the time off. All right? I don't know if you know this, but they played a long schedule last year. A lot of hard games, a lot of injuries. Let's get this team rested and refreshed back in, and we'll see you in a couple months in July. I don't have a problem with that. By the way, the Chargers have the exact same Hall of Fame game. Guess what? They're still doing 3 OTAs. They're still doing a mini camp. And you can make an argument one way or the other over what's better. But I would say Dan Campbell knows his team. But there's a couple players not at OTAs. They're not there. Here's what Dan Campbell had to say about those players.
Turnout's been awesome. We only have 2 guys that aren't here right now. I know who they are. I know where they're at. I've talked to them, and we're all good.
I've talked to them, and we're all good. And then he kind of did one of the, okay, like, we're good. And if you look into that a little bit more, what you see are who those 2 players are. So we had a lot of players that they didn't see on the field. This is from Pride of Detroit saying, I did not see these guys on the field based on his observations. That's Jeremy Reisman who is writing this. All right. But there are also 2 players that weren't there. All right. And they weren't on Campbell's list of 21 players in attendance who would not be full participants. All right. Campbell gave out a list. Those players were Frank Ragnow and Alex Anzalone, as both were not seen at practice and they were not on the list. We know both guys are in contract talks right now. Alex Anzalone has been doing some weird social media stuff this offseason. He's 31, I believe. He's looking for that final contract. Here's the thing. Isn't it funny how life changes in the NFL? Remember when we all gave Alex Anzalone a 3-year contract and it was worth like $21 million? And we all said to ourselves, like, that's way too much money for Alex Anzalone. Now it's a value contract based on the way he plays, and he wants to be extended and he wants more money. We just gave Derek Barnes 3 years, $24 million. So you'd have to imagine Alex Anzalone probably wants a little bit north of that. That's not always how it works. Look, we have numbers that we believe people are worth. Alex Anzalone is extremely important to this team, but you can't just pay him whatever you want into the twilight of his career. He's a 31-year-old linebacker. You re-signed Barnes for a reason. You drafted Jack Campbell in the first round for a reason. The hope is that Alex Anzalone comes back for the regular season. You need him to be here for the regular season. Also, he's down in Florida with his family. I think it's Florida, which he does every offseason. That is not unusual for him not to be in the team facilities throughout the entirety of the summer. That's not who he is. All right, there's other guys that, are not, they weren't participating or limited. There's a reason for that. Only 2 guys weren't there. Okay? They weren't there. And those were Frank and Alex Anzalone. The Frank Ragnow thing's a little bit weird to me, but would love to see what that looks like going forward as well. We'll give you more info on that in future videos, but just wanted to talk about Dan Campbell waking up feeling a little feisty today, waking up feeling a little dangerous. Kind of like it. I don't know about you, but I love that version of Dan Campbell. We know he's going to be honest. He feels good about the team. He feels good about the schedule. He feels good about where the mindset is of the team. So I'm going to go ahead and say I trust that, because this is not a guy who's lied in the past. I'll continue to watch more of that interview that he had, that press conference, and I'm sure we'll continue talking about it on here as well. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. See you on the next one.